The month of July was a little weird when it came to my reading. I guess we'll talk about it as I go through everything I read. So let's just dive right into the wrap up for July. I started the month with a book I meant to read in June, and that was Half an Inch of Water by Percival Everett. I had to go the hipster route when it came to reading Percival Everett and read one of the books that all the Percival Everett fans have not read, and that was Half an Inch of Water. It is a collection of short stories that are inspired by Westerns. I mean, they're Westerns, but they're written in like a modern style, and it was very, very good. I don't remember if I mentioned it in my last wrap up. Maybe I did, but while I'm talking about it again here, I really enjoyed it. It is one of the best short fiction collections I've ever read. Every single story in it is very good. Usually when you get an anthology from an author, there's going to be some stinkers in there because you can't always hit the mark unless you're Percival Everett, I guess. So it was a great introduction to his writing. I will definitely be reading more from him. Evie from She Was Only Evie, I'll link her channel in the description, informed me that there is a Percival Everett book where baseball is a part of the plot. The main character is a baseball player. It's called Suitor, and I want to read that very badly. I would like to listen to it on audio. I already have an ebook copy, but I want to do audio, and there's a version not in the United States, which is annoying because I have no way of getting it. And then there is a version coming out in the United States. It's either out right now or will be out in like October or something, which is also stupid because the book's like 15 years old or older. But anyways, yeah, so I will get to that when I can get a copy of it. And let's just move on to the next book. I was in a buddy read for the month of July, and that was reading The Sum of All Men by David Farland, which a lot of people just call The Rune Lords because that's the name of the series and kind of the name of the first book, but not like the way The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson was renamed Mistborn, The Final Empire, even though I think it was originally supposed to be called The Final Empire. Doesn't matter. The book is very good. A lot better than it was the first time I read it. I got like a third of the way through it a couple years ago and DNF'd it. I was like, I ain't feeling this. I don't like this at all. I am so glad I went back and read it again, which is a good lesson. If you DNF a book, you should definitely give it a second chance, as long as it wasn't an absolute turd. Like, the book was good, but I just wasn't feeling it. And I'm so glad I went back. And I will be reading the next Rune Lord's book, Brotherhood of the Wolf, in August. It's going to be one of my few non-Garbogist books. I plan on reading just straight junk. Maybe I'll make a video about that too. We'll see. I did last year. But yeah, The Sum of All Men by David Farland. So good. It is exactly what I expected from David Farland. I read his book, $1 Million Outlines, where he talks about outlining your novel and how to do it and how to build out your world and stuff like that. He was a mentor to Brandon Sanderson, which you can really tell when you read the Rune Lords books. And so after $1 Million Outlines, I knew what I was getting into with this, and I really appreciated seeing how the sausage is made and then consuming the sausage, I guess is the best way to put it. I think he is a very good world builder at times. He has very elegant writing, but a lot of it is very workmanlike, which is not a bad thing. So overall, David Farland, very good writer. The story is about very traditional lords and ladies and like Western European kingdoms, which is the turnoff for the books for me. I'm so tired of reading about lords and ladies in that style of fantasy. Fantasy itself is completely made up. None of it is real. Why are we so stuck in the structure of Europe from the year like 800 to 1300, right before guns came around? It's almost annoying. I'm just tired of it. I say that while loving The Wheel of Time, but the thing about The Wheel of Time is Robert Jordan took a lot of Asian history and culture and blended it into stuff because, you know, Rand ain't walking around with a hand-and-half sword or something they would have been using in Europe. Half the time he has like a katana of some kind. So I'm just tired of European-inspired fantasy. Let's just put it that way. But back to The Sum of All Men, there's a very cool magic system in it that involves taking attributes from other people, like strength from a very strong dude. It leaves them weak, but it makes you stronger, but they have to voluntarily give it to you. And there are lords and protectors of kingdoms, and they have a ton of these endowments. There are things like force horses, which are horses that have a bunch of intelligence given to them from other horses and strength and stuff. So they're like god tier horses, and there are warhounds. Same things happen too. And then it's just really cool. And the implications for the system are just amazing. And the themes about exploitation of your subjects in your kingdom and what it means to give up an endowment like that. It's really interesting. I think that the water runs real deep in just the magic system alone. And then you have a whole other magic system that isn't really described very well, but it's essentially like wizards. They do magic stuff. And I really like that it is as vague as it is while there's so much structure to the endowment system. And I'm looking forward to finding out more about both as the series goes on, because by the end of the book, a lot of really cool things have happened with it. And I think that the antagonist in the book is fascinating. Without spoiling anything about them, they are trying to conquer the civilized world as fast as possible because they think a threat is coming that will wipe out humanity, and they are living the ends justify the means. And it's really fascinating. So Brotherhood of the Wolf is going to be really cool. Let's just move on to what I read next. So I went on a nonfiction binge this month. I apologize in advance. Please don't stop watching the video because half of what I read was nonfiction. It's very interesting. And the first one I finished this month was Pax War and Peace in Rome's Golden Age by Tom Holland. Tom Holland is an awesome narrative history writer. He's not a historian. I think he has like an English degree, so he's not like a traditionally trained historian, but he does a really good job of taking history and making very compelling stories with it. Stories that are true, mostly, and Pax is no exception. I think I like Pax as much or more than his first two books on Rome, Rubicon and whatever the second one was, which was about not Julius Caesar, but about the other Caesars. This one is about the golden age that happened after Augustus and, involves some real cool people like Caligula. He never did anything wrong. He's super chill dude, and other Roman emperors like that, up to also covers like Titus and the destruction of Jerusalem. It's just amazing. It is such a great book for anyone that is interested in Roman history, but isn't a Romaboo, as I have heard them called. It's just really good. I highly recommend it to anyone. You don't have to read the other two to pick this one up. You could just go grab Pax if you wanted to just dive into Roman history, and you should definitely check it out. So my next book was recommended to me and given to me by Carlos from StoryTube. I'll link the video I had with them where we did a book swap where I sent them books and they sent me books, and I read Beast in the Shadows by Edogawa Rampo. This book is very weird. It is also such an amazing mystery novel. It's so strange, and it was written in 1928 and was translated by Ian Hughes in 2006. Translation's good. The book is written in a way that, aside from some of the very conservative ways that women are treated in the story, it could have been written 5 days ago. It's very compelling. It's a very interesting mystery about a mystery writer getting sucked into this web of weird things going on with this woman that becomes his love interest, and he is on the hunt for a murderer that might also be another mystery writer. It's so crazy. It has twists upon twists, and you will not see the ending coming. I started to suspect some things about 3/4 of the way through the book, but even then, my suspicions were confirmed, but in a way that was like, what? How is that even possible? It's really good. I had a ton of fun with it. It's a very short book, like 130 pages or something. I don't know. It's a little baby book. The audio is okay. The first time I tried the audio, it was like a complete turnoff, and I read some of it in print, and it was really good. And then I went back to the audio, and I did fine the second time. Yeah, Beast in the Shadows, great book. Back to my nonfiction kick. I read Ghostwriter, Travels on the Healing Road by Neil Peart, the drummer from Rush. I don't know if a lot of people know, but he was the main lyricist for Rush. He wrote a lot. He read a lot, and this book, Ghostwriter, is about his recovery from basically something that you don't come back from. In less than a year, he lost his 19-year-old daughter and his wife of 20 years. And this book is about him trying to become a person again. And it's about a journey on a motorcycle. He goes like 20,000 miles or something over 2 motorcycle seasons, like summers, across North America. Throughout the whole journey, he's telling you about what happened in his life and about the people that care about him and about the books he's reading and the places he's going and the people he meets along the way as he nurtures what he starts to refer to as his little baby soul. And it's just so amazing to hear about the recovery from the impossible. I don't know how I could ever come back from something like that. And the writing is so good. You really feel like you are with him in the places he travels. And this man really knows his books. As he's going through here, he's like, yeah, I finished reading this book from Camus, and then I've got some Tolstoy with me if I really absolutely run out of stuff to read. And then he's talking about all these other things. I mean, so as a book nerd, if you got this and you just took notes of what he was reading throughout his journey, the book is worth it alone. And his insights into life and literature and people is just so good. I am very glad I finally read this. What's really funny is I bought a copy of this book back in 2003 or something at a Rush concert. It was the last one that my dad and I went to. He was a super fan. It was during their feedback tour when they released a CD that was just a bunch of oldies that inspired them, and they just did their own covers of it, which is really good, but probably my least favorite Rush album. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, I bought the book back then. Well, I bought a book back then, Traveling Music, which is another one about him kind of driving, because I think he realized he really enjoyed writing about traveling. I think I got Ghost Rider back then, or maybe not, or I wanted Ghost Rider, but they didn't have a copy, so I got Traveling Music. Anyways, this is a long way of saying I've been wanting to read this for over 20 years, and I finally did, and I shouldn't have waited. It was so good. The audiobook is very good. I believe the narrator is Canadian, and if not, he's a really good Canadian accent. The boy sounds like Neil did when he was still alive. Definitely check that out, or any of his other traveling books. I am going to crush those. They're going to be one of my new fallbacks when I don't know what to read, or I don't want to read anything I actually have. If you enjoy travel writing, or you want to read a book about a man recovering from the worst events in his life ever, and about the healing road, you should definitely check it out. It's so inspirational. I can't recommend it enough. After that, I started to struggle. I didn't know what I wanted to read. I listened to a couple hours of Don Quixote, still a banger, one of the best books ever written. I understand why it gets the adoration that it does. I will just keep taking my sweet time with that book and enjoying every minute of it. But beyond that, I was just spinning my wheels. I would start something, stop it, start it, stop it, and I could not figure out what to do next. And so I thought, screw it. I'm just going to crush a little baby nonfiction book that I've been meaning to get to because I've read one of the other ones in the series, and why not? And that was Cobalt Guide to Plots and Campaigns, edited by Michelle Carter. This is from Cobalt Press, and they make the Cobalt's guides to all sorts of stuff. They have the Midgard campaign setting. They have their own version of D&D 5e now, thanks to Wizards of the Coast deciding to cause bad blood and nuke their entire stranglehold on the industry for some selfish, stupid, short-sighted reason. But yeah, Cobalt Guide to Plots and Campaigns. A lot of it is very obvious stuff that any good game master should know. There were some good insights in there for me. I want to get back into running tabletop RPG games. I will probably be doing it online. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I am one of those game masters that really tries to go above and beyond. I want my players to have a fantastic experience, and I want to be very good at running my games. And so I do a lot of background work for the games I run, and this was part of it. If you run games, you should definitely get a copy of this. Get an ebook copy or even the audiobook. It's very short. There's only one part you have to skip, and it's like a bunch of tables that they're reading off for like 10 minutes. And I know why they had to read it off because it's part of the book, but maybe it shouldn't have been in the audiobook. Yeah, great guide. And after that, I read a book only because Steve Donahue told me he wanted my copy that I shared in my recent book haul, and that was Brightness Falls from the Air by James Tiptree Jr. Now, I went off in the deep end of James Tiptree Jr. after this book because I didn't know James Tiptree Jr. was a woman named Alice Bradley Sheldon. She wrote under the pen name James Tiptree Jr., and while I was reading Brightness Falls from the Air, I kept thinking, this is some of the best vintage science fiction I have ever read. I thought it was published in like the 50s or 60s and was just way ahead of its time. I was wrong. It was published in the 80s, but it was written by someone who cut their teeth in the industry in the 50s and 60s. And the way I describe Brightness Falls from the Air is, imagine Dan Simmons Hyperion-esque writing, but in the atomic age of science fiction, like the 50s or early 60s. Like it gives off those vibes of the big metal rocket ships like you would see in a Heinlein story or something like that from 1951, with a lot more modern sensibilities, with a little hint of the really messed up stuff you see in Margaret Atwood's books like Oryx and Crake. There's these like weird situations where the background on some of these characters would have fit really good in a Margaret Atwood story, and I'm here for it. Like, I love Oryx and Crake. I love how just demented some of the things are that happen in there, because some of those things are very close to real life. And I think that in Brightness Falls from the Air, she is really good about making these characters feel very real, and they have come from backgrounds that sadly would happen today. And I really enjoyed the book. I only rated it like 3.5 stars, but the more I think about it, the more I like it, to the point that I went and picked up the little sequel-ish, The Starry Rift. It's either a collection of stories or a novella or something that takes place in the same universe. I really like the universe, and I can't recommend the book enough, but I will say I'm currently reading Her Smoke Rose Up Forever by James Tiptree Jr., and that is a collection of her short stories. They're even better. There are 3 or 4 award-winning short stories in there I highly recommend. The 3 I enjoyed the most, which also have won awards, are The Screwfly Solution, The Girl Who Was Plugged In, and Houston, Houston, Do You Read? The Screwfly Solution is so strange. It is a post-apocalyptic story that I don't even want to spoil at all. It is an epistolary story, which is really cool. And, you know, The Girl Who Was Plugged In is just this very weird cyberpunk-esque story that predates cyberpunk by like over a decade. Can't recommend that one enough. Houston, Houston, Do You Read? I think is the best distillation of what James Tiptree Jr. does best, and that's writing about gender. The major themes are usually something about the way slightly altering a gender role can change the way the world works. Just all these interesting gender dynamics and how interpersonal relationships are built between different people. Her life is very strange and very fascinating, and I will probably make a video about that at some point, maybe when I finish Her Smoke Rose Up Forever. But for now, I'll just leave it as a light teaser. Another book I've been chipping away at all month because I was taking my time with it was Onriting Science Fiction and Fantasy by Roger Zelazny. This is just a collection of all of them in one place. The physical book is a little too expensive for me, but the ebook was the right price, so I picked that up and I was reading that before bed, and it's so fascinating to hear about Roger Zelazny's writing process, his advice to writers, because he is definitely approaching the subject matter from a different angle than a lot of other people. I've read a lot of books about writing. Some of the things he says, yeah, I've seen other places, but others, I was just very impressed with the things he was suggesting and the way he was structuring his thought process for writing stories. You can tell he was coming at it from a much more literary style because he got his degree in Jacobean literature. So you see him approaching things. So his approach was very different than other writers. Craziest thing in that book is that man did not outline. He eventually started outlining, but all his heavy hitter books from early in his career did not have outlines. He was just writing those from the seat of his pants, which is incredible because they're so tightly written that I can't believe he didn't go in with a plan. A lot of his process was, well, I think of a situation and I think of a character and I kind of develop who that character is as a person, and then I just start pushing them through the stuff that goes on and just sees how they react, and I write that, and eventually I get to the end of the story and I'm done. And I'm like, dude, no one does that. Well, Glenn Cook does that, which that's another fascinating thing to find that 2 of my favorite writers have very similar storytelling styles. I took a lot of notes in that collection because I want to make a video about writing science fiction and fantasy and looking at it from the angles that really aren't covered by a lot of popular books and popular videos about it. So maybe I'll get to that someday. I don't know when. I really am looking at it more of not as a how to write science fiction and fantasy, but as a how to look at the structure of a story in a new and interesting way, and just giving you the proper words and tools for doing that kind of thing, because I am very bad at that. And it has taken a lot of work for me to even be somewhat reasonable at understanding themes and the structure of stories, because I'm one of those people that's like, book good. I had fun. I liked these events in it. There were probably themes there. I don't know. I had fun. Hopefully I'll get to that sometime. Let's move on. I read Star Trek Log 1 by Alan Dean Foster because I am in a Star Trek tabletop RPG game and I like doing a little research, and I think the best way to play that RPG is to pretend you are Captain Kirk and a little less Spock, because the plot needs to move forward, and that usually requires really stupid decisions like melting your hands onto the throttle of the ship in order to stop a sapient ball of energy from stealing your ship. Yes, that is one of the stories in Star Trek Log 1. They are very well written, a little corny at times, but I mean, they're the scripts from the animated series where all the funny memes come from. It's good. If you're comparing it to other science fiction books, it's kind of mid. But if you're looking at it from the angle of this is an adaptation of a screenplay from a cartoon, Alan Dean Foster did a real good job of fleshing them out. I think I would rate it higher if I was a little more invested in the characters from the original series. So I am going to take a break from these two bad boys, Star Trek Log 2 and Star Trek Corona by Greg Bear, until I am a little more invested in those characters by either watching the original series or the animated stuff. I don't know if my daughter would even sit through the old cartoon. Maybe I can try, and if she will, then we can experience them together. But Star Trek Log 1 is alright. And now the last book I read, because like I said, I've been struggling all month, we'll talk about what I'm currently reading after this, was A Savage War of Peace, Algeria 1954 to 1962 by Alistair Horn. This is the definitive book on the history of the war in Algeria. I've been wanting to read this for a long time. I had started it, got a couple hours into the audio, and then took a break, and then came back, listened for 30 minutes, and took a break. Well, this time I listened to it for like 6 hours straight, really got in, locked in, and then over the next 2.5 days, finished the book. It's fantastic. There's a reason why there aren't other books that cover the same subject matter, because this set the gold standard. It's so good. Alistair Horn is an incredible history writer. I will be reading his book about Verdun and his book about the French army in 1939, where they just kind of let Hitler do what he wanted. They were literally a few steps away from crossing the border into Germany and saying, hey, stop, stupid, from preventing World War II. The army leadership was just too old and just too afraid of getting into another war, even though the French standing army was huge in 1939. This isn't what this is about. I'm talking about A Savage War of Peace, Algeria. This book does a really good job of talking about why Algiers was not going to be a thing for very long. It talks about the colonialists and the anti-colonialists and just how much of a bloodbath it was in that country. The most depressing part is toward the end, when it's like, oh, all of these extremists on this political spectrum are just killing all the people in the middle. So then when the war ends and there's a power vacuum, the only ones left are the extremists. And, you know, it usually doesn't go very well when the extremists are the ones that fill in a power vacuum, and it didn't. It's just really fascinating. He talks about Camus a lot in the book. One of the things I want to say is when I read The Stranger by Albert Camus, I liked it. I thought that it was okay, just because a lot of what was cutting edge in that story is just like old news to me at this point so far in the future. But looking back on it now with a lot more context, thanks to A Savage War of Peace, The Stranger is a fantastic book. I want to read it again because I'm pretty sure that I would rate it very high. It might be one of my favorite pieces of literary fiction now with context. And that's the thing I want to talk about when it comes to all this nonfiction I read. Having a little better context for the fiction works you are reading really enhances your enjoyment of the subject matter. So I knew about Algeria, I knew about Algiers, the civil war to kick the French out and all of that, but I didn't know about it until finishing A Savage War of Peace. It does a really good job of showing you the effects of colonialism on a country and really shows you the wrong things to do when leaving. I mean, not as bad as other places when European nations bounced out of their colonies and left hellscapes, but it's just a really good book. I think that a lot of people would enjoy it. I have something wrong with my brain and have a mild obsession with reading about post-colonial Africa, or right when decolonization happened and like the build up to it and stuff like that. So maybe I'm just the one weirdo that enjoys this book, but other people that share a lot of the same interests of me have wanted to read this. And, you know, if you're one of those people that's even remotely interested in the history of a region like Algeria and the decolonization of the country, I highly recommend this book. I will warn you that a lot of bad things happened in that war. Very awful things from both sides. Never thought about how devastating a tire filled with plastic explosives rolled into a market would be until after reading this book. Holy crap. There's some really wild tactics used by both the FLN, which were the ones trying to liberate Algeria, and the Pied Noir extremists. I can't remember their name. What are they called? Anyways, there ended up being just a ton of revenge killings at one point. 30 people a day or something were dying just in the capital city, which is just an incredible amount of people to be dying and just in the street. At one point, some right-wing extremists pulled an author who was actually in support of France staying in Algeria, and a bunch of other people outside from a classroom. They wanted to kill one dude, and he actually wasn't there that day, but they just brought him out and just like put him against the wall and just took them all out anyways. And I'm like, holy crap. It was like 6 people they just killed, just gunned down in the middle of the day, in the middle of the city. It was a bloodbath. It's a very devastatingly interesting book, I think is a good way to put it. And after that, I didn't read anything else in the month of August. This is kind of a slow month for me, but that's okay. I am currently reading Paladin of Souls by Lois McMaster Bujold, and I hope it gets better. It is the slowest book I have read from her. I am not interested in anything or anyone in the story, but I've heard that the ending has a really good payoff, so I'm gonna keep reading it, but it's gonna be a struggle for a while. So while I'm saying that Paladin of Souls is the weakest Bujold book I've read so far, you know, it's not weak. Her prose, her literary style is still excellent. It is the only thing keeping me in the book. If she would have stumbled even a little bit with writing on like a line-by-line basis, I would have noped out of this book. But everything that makes her a great writer is there. She's just telling a story I'm not interested in. So everyone else out there that's still interested in Bujold and in the world of the 5 gods, you'd probably like this. It's just not a fantasy story for me. Remember me saying I'm burnt out on Western European inspired fantasy? This is the most Western European fantasy you can get. It's taking place in what is basically Spain, like shortly after the Reconquista. It's probably just a me thing. Another thing I'm reading is His Share of Glory, the complete science fiction of C.M. Kornbluth. I talked about it in my book haul recently. It's very good. I'm like 2 or 3 short stories into it. That man could write. It sucks that he passed away as young as he did, because he was one heck of a science fiction writer. So far, every story has been good to great. And these are the early ones he wrote when he was like 17 years old. So I'm looking forward to getting into the rest of the book to read all of his short fiction. I'm definitely entering my short fiction phase in my life, because like I said earlier, I'm reading Her Smoke Grows Up Forever by James Tiptree Jr. When I finish that, I will probably review it, or at least include it in a little biography video about James Tiptree Jr. So what are my plans for the month of August? It is Garb August. So other than Brotherhood of the Wolf and maybe Deadeye by Mark Greaney, Gray Man Book 4, I'm going to be reading some garbage. I don't know what garbage yet. I will be reading Digger Book 2. Yes, the series about the life insurance investigator who has a badass Mazda RX-7 and is in a polyamorous relationship with an Asian stereotype. I can't believe that I am looking forward to reading the next book in that series, because last year when I read Digger Book 1 in August, it had one of the best mysteries I've ever read in a mystery book. Like, not only the investigation and the entire process, which was very compelling in spite of the main character being an ass for most of the story, but the twist and the way he solved the mystery was so good. I feel insulted by how good it was because of just how corny and like bad a lot of the rest of the book is. So Warren Murphy knew what he was doing. I'm gonna read some movie or comic book tie-ins as well. Let me know in the comments what garbage I should read. Oh yeah, I'm gonna read a Star Trek novel, at least one. We'll see which one I read. I don't know yet. It's not gonna be from the original series. Maybe it'll be from Next Generation, or maybe just some random one. I don't know. Maybe I'll find the best Star Trek novel and go from there. And when it comes to future videos, I will be making another book haul at some point because I got more books. Yeah, it's stupid. Some of them I didn't pay for. They were sent to me, which is awesome. But do I really need more books? I mean, I said yes to them sending me books, so I guess I did. Other than a book haul, I want to finally get something made that's not either a haul or a wrap up or a book tag, but we'll see when I have time. I really want to do it. It's just a matter of getting time for it. And you know, my daughter goes back to school this month, so I might actually have some free time. And by free time, I mean time that I can use without feeling guilty about neglecting my child. So it's a lot more, your time is a lot more productive when you're not feeling guilty about using it. Let me know in the comments what you read in July and what garbage you think I should read in August, and what are your reading plans for August. You know, we've got just a couple weeks left of the summer where you can, I don't know, sit outside in the shade and slowly melt while you read a book on your e-reader that overheats because it's 105 Fahrenheit. I think I'm done. Thanks for watching. With that, I'll see you next time.